Welcome back to Night Terror. Put on your headphones, take a deep breath. Let's see how much your mind can handle before the sun comes up. Before we begin, make sure to like this video, share it, and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there.
The first sign that something was off about my blind date was that he knew what I was going to order before I said it. The waiter had just asked for drinks when he smiled at me and said, "She'll have the house red. She almost picked the Sauvignon, but she'll change her mind in a second." I hadn't told him I was torn between the two. I hadn't even picked up the wine list yet. I laughed awkwardly, assuming he was joking, but when I did reach for the menu, my eyes went straight to the red. I felt a strange flicker of déjà vu, like I'd already made the decision somewhere else. "Lucky guess," I said. He shrugged. "You hesitate when you're about to choose something cold." That didn't make sense, but he said it with such quiet certainty that I let it go. We'd been set up by mutual acquaintances from work, people I trusted, and his messages leading up to the date had been normal, polite, a little dry, nothing alarming. Sitting across from him in the dim restaurant, I kept telling myself that intuition can feel like mind reading when someone is observant enough. Still, the longer we talked, the more I noticed how carefully he watched me. Not in a flirtatious way, more like he was studying micro-expressions, tracking every blink and shift of my posture. Whenever I was about to ask a question, he'd answer it before I finished forming the words. When I started to mention my sister, he said, "The one who moved out west last year, right?" I froze. I had never mentioned a sister, not in my profile, not in our messages. "Yeah," I said slowly. "How did you know that?" He leaned back as if confused by my confusion. "You told me." "No, I didn't." A pause hung between us. He tilted his head slightly. "Maybe not tonight," he said almost to himself. The way he phrased it made my chest tighten. I tried to steer the conversation somewhere safer. "So what do you do again?" I asked, even though I was sure he'd told me already. "Consulting," he replied. "Mostly behavioral analysis." He smiled faintly. "I'm good at patterns." That word stuck with me. Patterns. As the evening went on, I started to feel like I was walking along tracks already laid down. When I reached for my glass, he reached for his at the same time. When I brushed hair from my face, he adjusted his collar. It wasn't mirroring, not exactly. It felt synchronized, like we were following the same invisible rhythm. Halfway through dinner, he glanced toward the entrance and his expression shifted just for a second. Not fear, anticipation. I followed his gaze but saw nothing unusual, just people coming and going. "Everything okay?" I asked. "It's fine," he said quickly, though his eyes lingered on the door a beat too long. I noticed then that he had chosen a table with a clear view of both exits. That could mean nothing. A lot of people prefer facing a room. Still, I began to feel like I was the only unpredictable element in a scene that had already been rehearsed. When the waiter returned to ask how everything was, he smiled at both of us and said, "Back again?" My stomach dropped. "Oh no," I said immediately. "This is my first time here." The waiter looked confused. "Sorry, I could have sworn—" He stopped himself and glanced at my date. Something unspoken passed between them. "Must be thinking of someone else," the waiter muttered before walking away. I turned to him slowly. "Have you brought someone else here recently?" I asked. "No," he said, holding my gaze. "Not recently." The answer felt carefully constructed. Not a lie exactly, just incomplete. I started replaying the night in my head, looking for inconsistencies. There were small gaps in my memory already. I couldn't clearly recall the drive there. I knew I'd parked on the street, but I couldn't picture the walk from my car to the entrance. It felt blurred, like a dream dissolving after you wake up. "You seem distracted," he observed softly. "Just tired," I lied. He studied my face for a moment longer than was comfortable. "You said that last time too." The words hit me like ice water. "Last time," I whispered. He blinked as if surprised he'd said it out loud. "Sorry, that sounded strange." He offered a quick, disarming smile. "I meant earlier, when we were messaging." But I knew he was covering something. The certainty in his voice hadn't matched a casual slip. I suddenly became aware of how quiet the restaurant had grown. Conversations continued around us, but they sounded muffled, like I was underwater. A couple at a nearby table kept glancing over, not subtly. Their expressions weren't curious or judgmental. They were expectant. as if they were waiting for a specific moment. "Do you ever get déjà vu?" he asked me. The question felt loaded. "Sometimes," I said carefully. "Why?" He traced the rim of his glass with his finger. "Because I do. Especially here." My pulse thudded in my ears. "Here as in this restaurant? Here as in with you?" My heart slammed against my ribs. "We've never met before," I said, trying to anchor myself to something solid. "I would remember." He didn't argue. He just watched me with a look that was almost sympathetic. "You don't remember the drive over, do you?" he asked quietly. My breath caught. I hadn't told him that. I hadn't given any indication. "That's a weird thing to say," I replied, forcing a laugh that didn't sound like mine. "Is it?" He leaned forward slightly. "You parked 2 blocks down. You hesitated before locking your car. You checked your reflection in the window." Every detail was correct. A chill spread through me. "Did you follow me?" I demanded. "No," he said calmly. "I was already here." That was worse. I felt suddenly exposed, like the entire evening had been constructed around me without my knowledge. "Why does it feel like you've done this before?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked past me, toward the couple who had been staring. They quickly looked down at their plates, almost in unison. When he turned back to me, his expression had changed. There was something like resignation in it. "Because I have," he said. My heart slammed against my ribs. "With me?" I managed. He nodded once. Several times. I shook my head instinctively. "That's not possible." "It is," he said gently. "You just don't carry it with you afterward." The room felt like it was tilting. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. "What are you talking about?" "Every time we meet, you notice the same things," he continued, his voice calm, almost soothing. "You get uncomfortable when I anticipate your choices. You realize you can't remember arriving. You ask if we've done this before." I stared at him, searching for signs of cruelty or amusement, but I found neither. He looked tired. "And what happens?" I asked. He hesitated. "It resets," he said softly. "For you." A wave of cold swept through me. "How?" I whispered. He gave a faint, sad smile. "You always ask that too." The lights above us flickered briefly, and several heads in the restaurant turned at once. Not toward the ceiling, toward us. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was coordinated enough to make my skin crawl. "Why me?" I breathed. "I don't know," he admitted. "I only know that I'm the one who remembers." My thoughts felt slippery, hard to hold on to. I tried to latch onto something concrete. "Then prove it," I said suddenly. "Tell me something I'm about to do." He looked at me carefully. "In about 10 seconds, you're going to reach for your phone to check the time, even though you're afraid to." I stayed perfectly still, determined not to move. 5 seconds passed. 8. My hand twitched involuntarily toward my purse. I felt an overwhelming urge to confirm the time, to anchor myself to something real and measurable. I clenched my fist to stop myself. He watched with a mixture of empathy and dread. "You can fight small things," he said quietly. "It doesn't change the larger pattern." The air felt thick, hard to breathe. Around us, the quiet hum of conversation seemed to synchronize, rising and falling in a steady cadence. I became acutely aware that no one was actually eating anymore. Forks hovered above plates. Glasses were held mid-air, waiting. "What happens if I leave?" I asked, my voice trembling now. He looked genuinely distressed. "You've tried." My vision blurred at the edges. "And?" "You never make it past the door." My pulse roared in my ears. I glanced toward the exit. It looked normal, just a door with a glowing sign above it. But as I focused on it, the distance seemed to stretch subtly, like a hallway in a dream that grows longer the closer you get. I looked back at him. "Why are you telling me this?" I whispered. "Because this is the first time you've stayed calm this long," he said. "Usually it's over by now." A cold realization settled over me. "Over?" He nodded faintly. "This is the part where you start to remember." The moment he said it, something shifted in my mind. Flashes. The same table. The same dim lighting. His face across from me, saying similar words. The same waiter asking the same question. The same feeling of wrongness creeping in, not once, but over and over, like frames layered on top of each other. My breath hitched. "I see it," I murmured. His eyes closed briefly as if bracing for impact. The restaurant grew utterly silent. Every pair of eyes turned toward us fully now, unblinking, expectant. "It won't let both of us keep it," he said softly. "It never does." The pressure in my head intensified, like something pushing against the inside of my skull. The memories felt fragile, already beginning to slip. "Why you?" I asked desperately. "Why do you get to remember?" He gave me a look I can't fully describe. It wasn't pride, it wasn't relief, it was loneliness. "I don't get to," he said. The lights flickered again, longer this time, plunging the room into near darkness before humming back to life. For a split second, everything froze completely. Then the noise resumed. The couple beside us laughed mid-conversation. The waiter passed by with a tray. It was as if nothing had happened. He was smiling at me warmly. "So," he said, casual and easy, "have you decided on the wine?" I stared at him, my heart pounding, my mind scrambling for the fragments of something I knew had just occurred. There was a strange heaviness behind my eyes, like I'd just woken from a deep sleep. "The red?" I heard myself say, though I couldn't remember choosing it. He nodded, unsurprised. "Good choice," he replied, and as I reached for the menu, I had the faintest, most unsettling feeling that I was right on time. Don't forget to like the video, share it, and subscribe for more.